we're off to the races. Hilo, Hawaii. This is archive video from our Fox Weather's Robert Ray, our senior correspondent. This was back in August of 2024 when Hone made a brush with the Big Island. And, well, Robert Ray, he's gearing up to make his way back to the Hawaiian Islands at the beginning of this week because Fausto is expected to do a little dance with the islands. Now, the good news is with Hurricane Fausto, a couple of things. One, it's expected to weaken, so that's great news. It's not going to be a hurricane by the time it makes its way to the Hawaiian Islands Tuesday and Wednesday. Could possibly even be a remnant system. But some models want to maintain perhaps some of that tropical storm strength. The other good news is that we're expecting Fausto to pass north of the island. So the worst of the impact in terms of wind is going to be away from the islands on the north side of that storm, which meaning with the islands on the south side of the storm, we're really just going to see maybe a little enhancement of what is already a normal weather pattern, our trade winds. So diving in, as of the late morning advisory, Fausto is a Category 2 hurricane. We reached peak intensity with Fausto yesterday, about 105 miles per hour. So some wobble in that intensity overnight. Fausto did an eye wall replacement cycle. And while it's been trying to gain itself back in composure today, it's a beautiful swirl. Look how big this thing is. I mean, when we broaden things out just to show you where we are in the Pacific, it is tiny, but not regardless. Getting a look at its say shield, we are looking at 1,000 miles of venting. That's pretty impressive, right? But the core of the storm itself, when we monitor, the cloud tops, we're only looking at about 300 miles or so across in terms of impact. And we are already seeing some of that dry air infiltrate the core of that storm. So those are the two things that are going to really start to continue to battle and weaken this system: dry air and cooler waters. Fausto was taking advantage of those warm Pacific waters the last few days. It got up to hurricane strength, but it fell off the ledge into the colder waters, and it's going to remain there on its way to Hawaii. Oftentimes when a system tracks in from the east to the Hawaiian Islands, it is typically a weaker system. Storms, in order to maintain their strength and really have a bigger impact on the Hawaiian Islands, and you look back over history, they are storms that oftentimes come up from the south. Things, think Aniki and Dot, right? Those storms coming up from the south maintained their intensity because they were able to hold on to those warmer waters. But I mean, this is a long runway of dry air, and so that is just going to continue to chew away out Fausto at its thunderstorms, at its core, and that's what's ultimately going to decrease this system in its intensity. Expected to remain steady, I think, through the day today. It's really not until tomorrow that battering starts to take place, and expecting end of the day tomorrow into Monday, tropical storm strength, and then even further still, we could maybe hold on to a low-end tropical storm, or we see the shell of itself, and then as we move into, say, Wednesday morning, likely looking at a bit of a remnant low. But overall, the forecast track is pretty steady, that we are expecting the core of Fausto to move north of the Hawaiian Islands. Now, if you're going to Hawaii, you're sipping a pina colada, you're enjoying the beaches, and you're thinking to yourself, okay, well, what does this mean for me? I don't think it's going to disrupt your pina colada time. I do think you will notice Fausto going on by on Tuesday and Wednesday, especially if you're on the windward side of the islands. So on the northeast facing shores, thinking Hilo, Hawaii, right? On Maui, you're on the northern side of the island, you're going to see, more cloud cover, more rain likely as those showers kind of pick up in coverage a bit as we head towards the middle of this week. Now, in terms of its impact, right, watches our future radar in clouds starts to lift this storm up to the north. And the hurricane hunters, they're actually flying into Fausto tonight, and they're going to be doing a pass in the upper levels, getting a sample of the atmosphere. Why that's really important is because that's going to be ingested back into these models that we're looking at here. It's going to give us a clearer view of what the atmosphere is doing, and will give us a better forecast track on really honing in on whether or not Fausto is going to continue that northward trajectory, which I think in many ways the confidence is there that is going to be the case. But we could see possibly a brush with some bands of rain that kind of want to work their way over the islands. But overall, I mean, you see the impact here by eye test. I don't think it's going to be too disruptive, and that's a really great thing. But I want to talk about something in Hawaii that's really cool. So this is, if you're in Hawaii, you know this is an everyday occurrence, right? This is what we call the prevailing winds, the trade winds. So you've got the equator. Either side of the equator, you have winds that are going to come together, and they see the convergence along the equator. But you have these northeasterly winds that are pretty persistent over the Hawaiian Islands, and they're strongest during the summer months, usually about a 10 to 20 mile per hour speed. Now, with that persistent northeasterly wind, we are going to see a push of that moisture that's going to bank up along the mountains, and that's going to favor the north and east side of the islands where Hilo sits. This is what we call the windward side of the island. So you're going to see rain-cooled air condensing and then bringing in those clouds and showers and thunderstorms. And on the other side of the islands, the rain shadow of the drier air that is then funneled down the other side of the mountains, and that's oftentimes where we lack any in the way of rain. And on the average annual rainfall, you look at the northeastern shores, you can see that we do have obviously higher rates of rain, or I should say higher amounts of rain over the course of a year. I'll take for the Big Island, for example, Hilo, we're looking at 60 to 80 inches of rain. Once you get up into the mountains, squeezes things out, that orographic lift, right? That's where you're going to see, over the 280 inches of rain. And then on the drier side of the island, the rain shadow effect knocks down that rain chance. But in our rain forecast with Fausto, you can see here on the Big Island, I mean, this is something we'll have to monitor. I think for the Big Island, there's actually even less impact because Fausto making that northward turn. But because Maui kind of juts up a little farther to the north, maybe if you're doing the road to Hana, might be a little more disruptive Tuesday into Wednesday because that prevailing northeasterly trade wind does maybe get a little more enhanced with Fausto coming on by. So we could see upwards of 3 to 5+ inches of rain there. Lahaina, we're dry. And then over to Kauai, which is typically the rainiest island. Again, windward side, 3 to 5 inches of rain. But there's a look at our winds. Again, 10 to 20 miles per hour, pretty typical for the Hawaiian Islands. But then as we continue on into Tuesday, Wednesday, here comes Fausto. And again, not too much to write home about, but we'll be watching, right? And we've got Robert Ray. He's going to be out there. He's our senior correspondent. He'll be traveling, and we will be getting that firsthand view as Fausto makes its pass.